Hi, I'm Sam, the founder of the Broken Wife Effect. I've created this talk series to help women overcome potential challenges they may be having in their lives. This series will cover everything from spiritual to emotional, physical, and practical symptoms that may arise from the Broken Wife Effect. I hope you find this series useful. Welcome to the Broken Wife Effect Healing Talk Series. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Broken Wife Effect Healing Talk Series. Today is part number 6, and we have Karen McKy with us. She is an international certified Psych K instructor. She helps women succeed and to find peace, renewed joy, and blessing as they reclaim their lives and identity after divorce, the death of a spouse or a loved one, or the loss of work. So Karen, welcome today, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. You're welcome. Happy to be here.
So let's start out with, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Oh, gosh. Well, Sam, I've been teaching a program called Psych K for over 13 years now. I got started in that back in 2010. And it's been a life-giving process that has really helped me. And then I've been able to help so many other people because I really became a product of the product. So I started using the processes to help myself just figure out more about my own life and trying to get things to be more comfortable for me. I felt like I was moving along and things were getting pretty good in my life, but there were a lot of old thoughts and haunting fears and limitations that I was believing in that were really holding me back. And so part of that was, of course, from previous marriages and things along those nature. But there were things just really from the beginning of my life that I'd learned about and been taught by my parents and by society and by everything else. And I just really wanted to get to a place where I could choose what I wanted for me and not feel like I was always running somebody else's program and their plan for my life. And so I learned about this program called Psych K and went to just study it for myself, to learn about it for me and help myself. And so then I started using those processes, and very quickly I realized that I really needed to become an instructor, even though I didn't want to do that, because I had my own beliefs about instructors and teachers because my whole family was full of them. And I hated school, and I hated the idea of actually being a teacher and being associated with something that I dislike so very much.
Yes.
And now I are one.
Absolutely. And you know what? I have studied with you before, and I love the way that you teach. I mean, it is just absolutely wonderful. So yes, you have that gift, and God wasn't going to let you bypass it.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank
there
you.
you go.
Yeah. And I've really enjoyed teaching now that I've been doing it for these numbers of years. And I'm very comfortable and relaxed and make a lot of fun jokes and make the classes very light and airy,
Yes.
even though we can be dealing with some really heavy, serious stuff in a person's life. It's all about creating change, and it's all about helping people evolve into the beautiful being that they know is possible, but they feel like it's been stifled and really shut down. So it doesn't matter if it's men or women. I had two amazing men in my class this last weekend. I had an 80-year-old gentleman and a 72-year-old gentleman. The 72-year-old man was reviewing and had come back to retake the basic because he felt like he just didn't get as much as he could have the first time through, and he wanted to, get a different angle on it. And so the two gentlemen ended up working together a bit, and oh my God, watching the two of these gentlemen work together was quite fascinating. And of course, we had other ladies in the class as well, and we all worked together, which is wonderful. And I love the philosophy of our program, which is about we have the answers within us. And so the whole idea is that we don't have to look outside of ourselves to have somebody else tell us what we need. We know what's right for us in our own heart and in our own understandings, but we've oftentimes overlooked all that information because we get so much information from other people and other sources telling us what we should do, and then we're living their life for them. And that was my biggest frustration in life, was just always feeling like I was a people pleaser and I was doing everything for everybody else.
Yeah.
And then I still felt incomplete, unsatisfied, unfulfilled, um, because I wasn't living my life for me.
Right.
Yeah, so that's one
Me.
of the biggest challenges I think about life is figuring out that, hey, I'm here to learn and grow for me.
Well, and that is, even though I can say, okay, I've been through a divorce, you've been through a divorce, so our lives should be the same. Yeah, me too, as well. That's why we're sisters here.
Yeah,
Um, but our circumstances in our lives are totally different. So,
right,
it's wonderful to search and hear what other people have to say, but one of the things that I love about what you do and teach is it causes you to look within.
right,
It's great to have the ideas and the concepts from other people, but like you said, it's all in here. And that's with my coaching. I don't have answers for anybody, but
right.
I can help you find your answers within.
Exactly,
So, and
exactly.
that's the beautiful part of it. So,
Yes.
tell me a little bit about maybe your history and why you went down this path, and then what you do to really help people, find their peace in life.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about that before our call today, and when did my curiosity and interest in the mind really begin? And you know what? I think as even as a little kid, I knew I wasn't like everybody else. I was an oddball. I never fit in. I was always very introspective and trying to figure things out and observing the world and observing people.
Hmm.
And as I got older and I got into my first marriage, I really thought maybe I should become a minister. I wasn't really interested in the traditional church model so much, but it was more about the spiritual search, the spiritual journey,
Yeah.
because that's what I felt like I was really here to understand more about myself and to help other people with. But somehow the idea of the whole ministry kind of a concept in the traditional way just didn't ever feel right.
Hmm.
And I ended up, bumbling along. And my first marriage, I had two beautiful children from that marriage, but we were just very different. I was really starting to pursue much more of my spirituality, and I wanted to understand more about who I was as a spiritual being because I was starting to really, feel very uncomfortable. Like I'm here just as this person.
Hmm.
And my spiritual life was kind of a subset of my personhood because I knew myself, I was truly a spiritual being and really having a human experience. And then later on, I found out about this Jesuit priest who had written that very comment that, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And I went, oh my God, so somebody else thought the same thing I did years ago. And he was a very prolific writer. His name was Pierre Teilhard Desjardins, and he wrote a lot. So there's there was this piece that I needed to fulfill, I needed to work with, but that was very threatening to my first husband. And as I started going down more of the spiritual road and exploring more about my spiritual path and who I was, that became very uncomfortable for him. And I
Hmm.
started realizing that even though we had these two beautiful children, I wasn't fulfilled, I wasn't happy, and he wasn't really all that happy either. And so we decided that we would go and split. We wanted to demonstrate for our children that it was better to be happy and in a relationship where you're happy than to be together in a miserable relationship where you really don't want to spend time with each other and you just kind of like put up with each other.
Yeah.
And so, and it was a very, intellectual conversation that we had.
Hmm.
And he went to bed that night, and I stayed up and cried the whole night. And I really felt the death of our marriage happen on
Yeah.
July 21st in 1998. And it was a death. I went through a grieving process,
Oh, yes.
and it was so hard. The intellectual, logical piece of it made sense to both of us.
Yeah.
But then when we actually made that decision and finalized that decision, he had the best night of sleep he'd had in months, and I had no sleep whatsoever, and
Hmm.
then had to get on taking the children to school and stuff. But after I went through that night, I realized, oh my God, I've just given myself the gift I needed.
Yeah.
And so, you could say, okay, well, that's where my brokenness, came out. But actually, the broken marriage was a place where it freed me to start becoming who I really needed to be. However, I did not secure myself financially very well in that departure from that marriage. And I ended up becoming kind of desperate. So I went into, now I am the damsel in distress and I needed a white knight to come and rescue me. So in comes husband number two. And I go into that relationship because I felt very distressed, and I was holding down two jobs. And the nights that my children were with their dad, I ended up driving limousines from about 8 o'clock in the evening until the wee hours, like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And that had its own subset of weird things that, took place. And I realized I cannot burn my candle, at both ends and still hope to be a decent mother
Right.
when my kids are with me. So that was really hard. But so then my success, story came in. I've got to have another man. And so I married out of desperation. And because I was calling in a white knight to rescue the damsel in
Mm-hmm.
distress, guess who shows up? A white knight, and I end up meeting this man, and we have a lot of similar things in common. And we go down a pathway together and decide that we're going to create another marriage. And so he didn't have any children, and I had my two. He wanted to, bring my children in as basically his kids. So then I had two men that wanted to be the fathers, and I
Mm-hmm.
was walking this really awful tightrope between these two men, and that became a whole nother problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also had started a business together, and in that business we were really struggling and trying to make things work. And part of the original business fell apart, and then we ended up starting another business. And so it was like having another baby, really. When you
Yeah.
start a business, there's so much
Mm-hmm.
to learn and do. So I really ended up putting my spirituality on the back shelf at that point. I felt like I've just got to take care of the nuts and the bolts, the nuts and the bolts. Well, after 8 years of that marriage, my spirituality was calling to me again, and I was desperate to return to that. So I ended up studying hypnosis, and I felt like, okay, this is going to be my next piece of my journey. It's really going to help me blossom and unfold. Well,
Mm-hmm.
sure it did. And in the same time frame, husband number two decided that he couldn't remain faithful to me. So
Yeah.
I drew the line and I said, absolutely not. And then it was just a matter of time before, the two of us had our divorce from one another there.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like, okay, well, now I've got two failed marriages. I really don't care for that term, but because I felt like they were successes, actually. I was very successful in what I'd set out to do, which is about learning more about me, learning more about how to run a business, learning how to take care of things, and being a great manager of time in the whole, long run. So the hypnosis stuff is what brought me back into my spiritual journey. And
Mm-hmm.
in that spiritual journey, that's when the Psyche piece came in. I thought Psyche was going to be kind of a backdoor piece behind everything, but the hypnosis ended up becoming the back door, and everything started moving forward almost effortlessly with the whole Psyche piece, because that's really where spirit, God, universe was supporting me in my work.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I got to where I am. Like I said a few minutes ago, I didn't want to be an instructor, but that's what was designed. That was like the grand plan. So I stepped into that. And now I've been able to really have a ministry, what I think of as a ministry of my own, sharing this incredible work and helping people discover their own innate power within them, and connecting much more with their divine aspect, whatever it is you call that for yourself, whether it's
Yeah.
God or spirit or universe or whatever. It's really important that we get to have that piece, fully integrated in our lives. So that's part of what I help people get to.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes people come in with much more pressing needs that are more tangible or material in our material world. And part of that is, marriages and relationships and difficulties with people that we have. And how do we, um, how do we make sense of all these things that seem so upside down sometimes? But there's always a way, to help
Mm-hmm.
ourselves and to find our grounding and to find our connectedness with spirit. And that's a big part of what I help people do,
Yeah.
and helping them just remember that they're already this incredible being. They just need to maybe slow things down a little bit and then start examining what beliefs they're actually living from. most of the beliefs that we have, Sam, and I know you and I've even talked about this too, is that there's a lot of limitations that we live from. And sometimes we have had those serve us well in the past, but now maybe those limitations are not serving us well. And actually, marriage can become a perceived limitation. We perceive ourselves as, I can't do what I need to do in this relationship, or I can't be who I need to be in this relationship. I certainly have been there in the past. And, I felt that way with my first husband, certainly felt that way with my second husband.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to free myself from those two relationships because I was hitting a new level of growth.
Yeah.
And I was also being pushed into a new level of growth, even though I thought I was doing my own thing pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
There was
Yeah.
a whole nother plan that was going to be revealed to me.
Yeah. Well, and it's wonderful when you get to that point to where you can start listening to that. There are so
Right.
many times, just like with the teaching and stuff, you wanted to stay away from that. You didn't want to be a part of that. But
Yeah.
it kind of kept coming back in, and then all of a sudden it hit you, and that's what it is. But I love, when you talked about your first marriage, it kind of fell apart on its own. You guys decided that it just wasn't right for both of you, but then you didn't allow yourself to stand on your own or find your own truth, find your own space because of the fear, which is where your husband number two kind of came in the picture. But it's beautiful when you take the time to heal and truly look inward, to find yourself.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing journey to do that part, and then to see what opens up from that and what's brought into your life during
Right.
the journey.
And as you were just saying that, one of the thoughts that just popped into my mind that I wanted to come back to that I omitted or overlooked was that my biggest fear in my entire life has been, I can't provide for myself. I
Yeah.
have to have somebody else provide for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a huge, huge fear. And so, obviously I had the first marriage, and I entered that first marriage knowing that he would be a good provider.
Right.
And I was looking for somebody that would be a good provider. And I also wanted somebody that would be a great father.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I wanted to have children. And so, he measured up on both of those. Even to this day, he's a great dad. And he was a loyal person. So I can't find any fault there. And then when I had this other husband step in, so husband number two came along, and I needed to realize for myself that I was still living from that fear that I can't provide for myself and stand on my own 2 feet.
Yeah.
And I stepped into the whole business role and running a business from scratch. He wanted nothing to do with the financial end of things, so I was left with that burden. And I felt like I would never be able to figure that out, but I did. And then I
Yeah.
found out, hey, I'm a pretty damn good business manager, and
Uh-huh.
I could handle the money. But my first husband would never let me do that because he felt like women couldn't handle money. So that was his belief structure that ran interference in our relationship.
Yeah.
And therefore, I believed that I wasn't going to be financially capable. So, see, our beliefs really throw these curveballs into
Yeah.
relationships. And so, once I found out that I was a good money manager and I was able to start and manage a business and do well on my own, that gave me the strength then to be able to step out of that marriage because of the unfaithfulness. And
Right.
I could run a business on my own, and I could do it. And now I just had to prove to myself that I could.
Yeah.
So I ended up meeting another man.
Uh-huh.
And this other man was 23 years my senior. And so now comes husband number three.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't have any money. In fact, he was pretty much broke and financially without money. And I ended up becoming the woman that I could become,
Yeah.
which was I carried both of us financially. So not only was I taking care of me, but I was also taking care of his needs financially. And that also included him passing just about a year and a half ago from
Mm-hmm.
Alzheimer's. So we went down a slippery slope where not only was I caring for us financially, but I was also having to carry the load of the spiritual and the emotional and the mental burden that goes along with all of that as you watch a beloved person in your life deteriorating before your eyes.
Yeah.
And so, then comes the whole grief and loss piece of, well, who am I now after this man is no longer in my life? And I adored him and he adored me. And we had such great times together and we were both very
Yeah.
spiritually aligned. So, here I am. I'm 61
Mm-hmm.
and I'm in a place where I'm redesigning my life again for the
Yeah.
fourth time
Yeah.
and saying, how do I do this? And what is important to me?
Yeah.
And what are the things that I need to have happen for me to make my life still be more successful?
Yeah.
And so that's where I keep looking at what is that? And
Mm-hmm.
I know now that I can stand on my own 2 feet financially, and I'm doing it. And I feel comfortable and confident in doing that. And I surround myself now with people that also have those same belief structures. So I'm not constantly feeling like I have to um, squelch any part of me. So there you go. I don't know where that takes us next, but
Well, that I love that you shared all of that, because so many times when we get out of a relationship, we feel, okay, we're broken. I don't know where to go. I don't. But you didn't look at it as a failure. You looked at it as, okay,
a
what can I
success.
learn from this?
Hmm.
What can I learn from this and take forward with me? So that is a beautiful statement to wrap your head around, that, okay, it wasn't a failure.
Mm-mm.
Yes, it didn't work out the way that I had planned. Um, but what can I learn from it? How can I grow from it and do better the next time, or choose better the next time? And as I have definitely learned in my life, as you heal yourself, find yourself, know yourself, love and appreciate who you are, you will attract people who love and appreciate you the way you
Exactly.
deserve. But if you don't move towards that and get to that spot, it's kind of reliving the same thing over and over again. So
Mhm.
I love all that you shared, and to be able to really say, okay, this is what I got from here, and then I move forward. And this is where I got from here, and then I move forward, and
Mhm.
finding the positive and the good so that you can take that and move forward with it. I mean, I think your story is absolutely beautiful.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
thank you for sharing so much of it
You're
with
welcome.
us.
Sure.
So what would be, as we need to wrap up and stuff, what would be your superpower?
Well, I think it's kind of down to two. It's two, like they go hand in hand. One
Mhm.
doesn't exist without the other. And the one I would lean into first is I'll do whatever it takes to make something work.
Yeah.
And and that means about my life, that I'll do whatever it takes to make my life work. I have to
Yeah.
take care of myself before I can take care of anybody else. And
Yes.
that's been a very big, 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 big lesson. And even the airline industry has it right. You have to put the mask on yourself before you take
Mhm.
care of somebody else.
Yes.
So um, we've got to do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And that meant me stepping into something really scary and saying, we're not happy. We need to end this relationship with my first husband.
Hmm.
Second relationship, saying, I won't put up with this.
Yeah.
I love myself enough and I am worthy of a man who is faithful, and you're not in that capacity.
Yeah.
So I took care of myself enough to again boldly step into the unknown and say, oh my God, now I'm going to be divorced again.
Hmm.
But I was going to do whatever it took for me to stay safe, healthy, and be mentally on top of the game.
Right.
And then with my third husband passing, again, it's do whatever it takes. And I was working hard and doing everything it took to make sure that his needs were provided for and mine were needed and provided for, and did it. So the other piece that I said was the second piece that kind of goes together with this is determination.
Yeah.
So I think do whatever it takes and determination really walk hand in hand with each other. And I think as we look at what are our superpowers, a lot of times people think about, like in the old comics, it's like, well, my superpower is to see through, steel walls or,
Yeah.
whatever
Yep.
it is,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the Superman's ability to look into buildings and stuff, or to fly over these buildings. And we
Mhm.
think about physical superpowers. I think our most important superpowers are the mental superpowers that
Yeah.
we have. And
Yeah.
if we think about those, that's really what's going to see us through,
Mhm.
because physically you can have your body, because my third husband had a very strong physical body, but
Yeah.
he lost his mental capacities.
Yeah.
And if you lose your mental capacities, there's not much left. You can have a great strong physical body, but um,
Yeah.
being able to think things through is really where it is, at least in my humble opinion.
Uh-huh. Yep.
That's what I lean into. So, for the ladies that are watching this program, really, I would suggest not thinking of yourself as broken, but to think of yourself as successful, and look for the lessons that have been taught by these incredible teachers that you've brought into your life.
Yeah.
Because these other partners that we've had are incredible teachers. And if we look back and say, wow, what did I actually learn from this? We
Mhm.
can use that as a superpower to move ourselves forward.
Mhm.
And our perception of ourselves is critical.
Yeah.
So perception and beliefs walk hand in hand. And if we perceive ourselves as broken and um, damaged goods or any of those kinds of things, that perception will become a belief that you live from, and
Yeah.
that belief will cripple you. So if you feel broken, say, okay, I feel broken, but it doesn't have to define you.
Yeah.
It's like acknowledge where your feelings are for sure, and
Mhm.
then say, okay, well, what is it going to take for me to move beyond where I'm at and become what I want to be? And then start asking yourself, well, what do I want to be? Because
Yeah.
without a destination, it's really hard to get there.
Yes. 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 Oh, that's perfect. Absolutely beautiful. I love that.
Yeah,
So, thank you so much for joining us today. I
you're welcome.
appreciate sharing everything that you've shared. And for everybody who is watching, if you are interested in Psyche and how it can help you move forward, like I said, I've trained in it. So Karen and I
And
both
she's good.
Karen and I can both
Really good.
facilitate sessions. But if you want to learn, one of the beautiful things about Psyche is you don't need somebody else to be able to work on you and your beliefs. Um, so I studied this in thoughts of it will help me in my coaching, but I can't tell you how much it has helped me personally in my own life, in my walk and my growth. So if it's something that you say, hey, I want to learn this for myself, this is the gal for you to connect with. So she's a wonderful teacher.
Oh, thank you,
So
Sam.
so thank you very much today. And for
You are
everybody,
welcome.
until next time, have a wonderful week. Bye.
Bye.